Hey everyone, Mo here, and before the video begins, I just want to let you guys know that my schedule has opened up for me to do coaching again. So if you're interested in private one-on-one coaching for me to help you, whether you're a newer player and you want to excel at the game very quickly and learn the fundamentals without developing any bad habits early, or if you're an experienced player who's already maybe platinum or diamond in your top 1%, but you need some help filling in the gap to get you to that 0.01%, to make you just some of the best, then hit me up on Discord and I can get you in some private one-on-one coaching lessons to help you polish up any skills you want to refine and help you learn all of the secrets to becoming a top player. That's it. I hope you enjoy the video. Hey everybody, Mo here, and welcome back to another Meta Monday video. This is for November 15th. Yeah, it's for that week. And boy, oh boy, do we have... I don't know what Winston's doing. Do we have a meta? This is the first time in 2 months that Draven Sion is not the most played deck. Not only is it not the most played deck, it's not even the second most played deck. We have Gangplank Sejuani coming back from the dead. We just had Jace released over this last week. This week has been absolutely crazy, and I can't wait to get into it and jump into it and look at the top 8 decks we have in the meta for Masters Plus of this last week. And maybe I'll give you guys, I'll go ahead and give you my dark horse deck of what I think you should be playing for the next week to look out for that. But before we get into the video, I wanted to remind you guys that 60% of the people that watch my videos aren't actually subscribed to me. So if you guys could do me a huge favor and click the subscribe button and leave a comment down in the video letting me know what type of videos and content you want to see in the future, that would help me out so much with the YouTube algorithm. I'm trying to hit 5,000 subscribers before the end of the year so we can start 2022 off extremely strong. So any type of help you guys can give me with the algorithm, I'd really appreciate it. That's it for the intro. Let's get into this top 8 most played decks in the meta. So coming in at number 1, dethroning Draven Sion is Gangplank Sejuani. So actually, let's start by talking about what meta we're in, the state of the meta. So the state of the meta right now is very crazy. It's very much Sion-Hate decks. That's all it is. It's just, I'm going to beat Sion Draven, and then it says, I'm going to beat the decks that beat Sion Draven. So, for instance, you have Gangplank, so let's just look at the last 2 days. I know this, we're going to look over the last week, but just in the last 2 days, you have decks like Jace Heimer, Jace Lux, Talia Lysandra, Darkness, GP Sejuani. All of these decks are supposed to beat Draven Sion. So, people are very much hard forcing these decks that beat Draven Sion and don't care about anything else, because that's the state we're in. People are so tired of seeing Draven Sion dominate the meta for its second month straight, and more than that at this point, that the players finally took it into their own hands and said, hey, we're tired of seeing this deck. The devs aren't going to nerf it enough to take it out of the meta. We'll take it out of the meta ourselves by playing these extremely polarizing matchups. Meaning decks like Darkness and Sejuani and Thralls has skyrocketed in popularity lately. All of these decks that basically solo focus on beating Draven Sion, and they're like, I don't care what you do, I'm going to beat Draven Sion, and that's that. It's very interesting. It's a very interesting way to look at things. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know if that's a good thing, if players warping the meta themselves are being forced to warp the meta themselves by playing these polarizing matchups on ladder to kind of bully this deck out is good, or maybe we need more balance patches and it's kind of on the devs to make the meta change and stuff like that. Who knows? I'm not really sure which one. I like the fact that the players can change the meta. I think players having the ability to change the meta and going about it their own way and changing the meta is really good. I think that's really cool. So yeah, so that's kind of the state of the meta we're in. So because of that, the most played deck right now is, in fact, Gangplank Sejuani. So Gangplank Sejuani absolutely destroys a lot of these other mid-range decks. For instance, Lurk is being extremely popular. Lurk isn't really a mid-range deck, depending on how you play it, but it destroys Lurk. It beats all the Jace decks because you just go too wide for them. You're typically beating decks like Teemo Swain and your Darknesses because they just can't really keep up. You do struggle with Zed Poppy, but if Zed Poppy doesn't draw things like Range Resolve, and you have really good make it range, you could still win that. It really just depends on if the Zed Poppy player can kind of wait for your removal to then play the Rangers or kind of just kill you with champions, because GP Sejuani doesn't have very good removal spells. They kind of just have Harpoon is the only way to actually kill Poppy or Zed. So if they don't have Harpoon for one of those two champions early, and they don't have a Plunder trigger procced early, then you kind of just get to play your champions and run away, and they can't really block or do anything well. They don't have elusive blockers outside of like 2-zap spray fins. So yeah, Gangplank Sejuani definitely has the matchups it loses in, like against Poppy Zed, Ziggs Poppy, stuff like that. These aggro decks are typically okay into it. But for the most part, this deck is absolutely dominating the meta and dominating ladder, and it is the new Draven Sion for this week, where it's either play GP Sejuani or beat GP Sejuani. That is the meta we're in. So that brings us to the second deck, which is a beat GP Sejuani deck, Poppy Zed. Poppy Zed is one of my favorite decks right now to play, because it fulfills that function of beating Sejuani really well as decks like the Thralls, like the Darkness, just these other random decks that are supposed to be beating the Scion decks really hard. You hard counter those counter decks with the Poppy Zed, because it's like this really weird circle of, okay, I'm going to make sure I beat Sion Draven, and then these decks like Poppy Zed go, okay, well then I'm going to make sure I beat you, because now you're bullying out all the Sion Dravens. And then now there's still some Sion Draven players here or there that are like, I'm going to prey on all the decks trying to prey on the decks that are trying to prey on me. And it's just this huge circle, and it's really cool to see, very interesting. And it makes it a lot easier to actually climb ladder now, because you know what to expect on ladder and you know how to beat it. Yeah, so it's a really good time to be playing ladder at the moment. So after Poppy Zed, the third most played deck is Sion Draven. Not much to say about this deck. It's the exact same Sion Draven deck that's been played before. It's just now it's dropped a lot in play rate, not really in win rate. I think it's maybe dropped like 8% in win rate. But it's dropped a lot in play rate because everyone is gunning for it so freaking hard that it's really hard to play. Lurk, same ideal. Lurk just gets trashed on by a couple decks here, like the GP Sejuani and the Draven Sion, but it still beats a lot of decks like you can go 50-50 or more with Poppy Zed, Poppy Ziggs, because it's just who rolls better. And typically with Lurk, if you can go wider because you're playing 9 1-drops, then you're pretty chilling. You beat the Darkness decks, you beat the just random garbage decks, so you know, that's why Lurk's there. Not really much to be said on that. We've talked about a million times. Darkness, another deck we've talked about a million times, coming in at number 5. This deck is nothing special. I don't think it's great. I actually don't even think it's the best control deck at the moment. I actually think this, like, where's it at? This Elise Jace Vi deck. Yeah, right here. 56% win rate compared to a 54% win rate. So it already has a higher win rate. Like, I think this deck is just strictly better than Darkness. I just think people aren't really playing it. Yeah, it's like Jace Elise Vi with the new Fortress tomorrow. It's just like a bunch of control decks. Then you play like Ledros Atrocity to end the game. So at the end of the day, it's still some type of Ledros Atrocity control deck. We see like JO1 right here has been doing really well with it. Hellraiser's been doing extremely well with it. There's, I think this deck has the potential to just be completely nuts. I don't know how it fares into Draven Sion, but I know it's very frustrating to play against when you're playing other mid-range decks, and decks like if you're trying to play Poppy Zed and you don't have Ranger's Resolve or Sharp Sight, then it can be really annoying to play against things like the Despair, the Withering Mist, the obviously like all the Vile Feast and stuff like that. So Shock Blast is an absolute monster card. So I think this Elise Jace Vi deck is a lot stronger than Darkness. So I think even at this point, there's actually no reason to play Darkness other than, I mean, obviously you can just find it fun, but yeah, because this is just a better control deck. So if you want a good control deck, I'd play the Elise Jace Vi over Darkness. It has a higher win rate. It has actual cards that like can do stuff. You have a way to win the game that's not exactly Viger. So you're chilling. After that, we have Teemo Swain. So this deck is still up a lot in popularity, actually. I think it came in pretty low end on the popularity last week, but is rising in play rate to 4%. And it's because it still just beats the Zed Poppy decks out there. As we see here, Zed Poppy is 8% of the meta, so almost 1 in every 10 games you're going to see a Poppy, like 1 in every 11 or 12 games you'll see Poppy Zed. That's pretty good to have a hard counter against that with Teemo Swain. As well, I think Teemo Swain does really good into Lurk as well, because you have ways to kill all their small units, and then by the time they play their big units, all you have to do is just pokey stick it, and then you can kill it with like a Guillotine or a Scorched Earth or something like that. So I believe you're also good into those styles of decks. I don't think you'd be good into Draven Sion, but I could be wrong. And you're definitely not good into GP Sejuani. But it's just one of those where it's like, it's part of the Draven Sion circle where it beats all of the decks trying to beat the decks that are trying to beat Draven Sion. So it beats all the decks like the Zed Poppies, Zig Poppies, Pike Rek'Sai decks that are trying to beat the decks like Sejuani and stuff. Yeah, so it's definitely, I don't know if it's going to be here to stay, but it's up in popularity. I think if anything, I think this deck will be swapped out with Thralls, and I think this deck will be swapped out with the Elise by Jace deck by the end of the week. Going in at number 7 is Ziggs Poppy Burn. Good old faithful Burn. We saw the play rate absolutely drop on Ziggs Poppy last week, even though the win rate was still extremely high. I'm not really sure what the reasoning for that is. I think it's still pretty good. I think the deck is still nuts. It still beats things like the GP Sejuani. It beats random garbage. It beats all these like unrefined Jace list. I think you have a good time into darkness with it. You know, personally, I think that's a pretty decent matchup. So I'm not really sure why Ziggs Poppy Burn is so low on play rate, but I think it's pretty good. I mean, it's still coming at number 7, so it's still one of the most played, like top 8 most played decks. I would just expect to be played a little bit more, but maybe that's just my aggro biased brain thinking. But yeah, extremely solid deck. Not much to say on this as well because it's, you know, an old deck that's been here for a long bit. But a new deck that's here and that's new is Jace Lux. So Jace just came out this last week. This is a little mini champion expansion, and he's been a lot of fun. A lot of talk of whether or not people think he's actually good or if they think he's bad, but his support cards are good. I am personally in the boat of, I think Jace himself is not a very good card. I think he's like, okay, I don't think he's bad by any means, but I think he's just a very average card. But I think that his followers and his support spells and cards that were created around Jace are extremely good. I think his support cards are extremely good, and Heimerdinger kind of carries the Jace Heimerdinger deck. I am under the impression that Jace Heimerdinger Bandle is just strictly better than all of the other Jace variants, but obviously stats-wise, it looks like it's the lowest right now out of these 3. Let me see if I can find a Jace Jace, so Freljord. So is it even lower than Freljord? It's even lower than this random Freljord version. Okay, it's not as low as the Targon version. So it beats the Targon version, but it's worse than like Demacia, Ionia, and Freljord. So obviously I could be wrong here, but I'm really enjoying the Bandle City version because you get things like Minimorph, so it helps you out in the mirror match a lot. Minimorph obviously helps you out a lot with the Gangplank Sejuani decks. And Jace is just extremely powerful when paired with a champion that can abuse his support cards and his support followers. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something like a Jace go down like a 2-of. You start playing like 3 Heimer, 2 Jace, 1 Lux, or something like that. In the sense of Jace is cool and all, but he's cool in the late game, whereas Heimer and Tex are going to be your carry. And then having a 1-of Lux is okay because you randomly just get to take board control with lasers and stuff like that, which is really neat. So, yeah, I was super excited to see how the Jace decks turn out once they start to get polished and refined. I think there will definitely be a tier 1 Jace deck. I am under the impression it'll be Jace Heimerdinger, but I think it might lean into something like the triple Heimerdinger, 2 Jace, 1 Lux style deck where you're playing it with not Bandle, but Demacia, back-to-backs, stuff like that. And it's going to be more of an all-in tech version. So I think it's going to be 3 Heimer, 2 Jace, 1 Lux, and it's going to be tech-focused, and you're going to win with things like techs with back-to-back and all these keywords and all those types of shenanigans. So, yeah, so that's the look at this Meta Monday. My Dark Horse deck for this week isn't really a Dark Horse necessarily. It's just kind of like an underplayed deck right now, which is Thralls. I think you guys should be playing Thralls a lot because it does the things like beats Draven Sion, but also just beats a bunch of random garbage. Like it beats like all the other mid-range decks because you can just be faster than them. Anything that doesn't play Scorched Earth, obviously you can have these nut turns where it's like, oh, on turn 5 or 6, I just randomly have 4+ Thralls in play. Oops, I'm killing you now with like 32 overwhelm damage. It gets really out of hand really fast sometimes, and other times, worst case scenarios, you just play like a slow Freljord board wipe control deck, and then you just naturally get a bunch of Thralls. So it's one of those decks where you can have this nutty turn 5, turn 6 win, but you can also slow the game down a lot if you need to, and win just by passively doing nothing and passing the turn. I personally will be countering this deck with Poppy Zed. I'll probably only be playing Poppy Zed for the next couple of weeks. I think I'm currently at 250 or almost 300 LP, and I'm going to try to hit that 400 LP mark before seasonal so I can be in the 7-2 spot, and Poppy Zed will probably be the deck that I use the most. It's going to be between Poppy Zed and Gangplank Sejuani, depending on what I'm seeing more of in the meta at the time. But like last night, for instance, I saw a bunch of people spamming Thralls and a bunch of people a bunch of people playing Thralls and a bunch of people in the top 16 on North America ladders playing Thralls. So I'm just going to load up Poppy's Head, collect my free wins, and get to my 400 LP. But that's going to be it for this Meta Monday video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys try out the Dark Horse deck or the Dark Horse deck in Thralls. I think that'll be the next big thing popping up in this top 8 next week. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, let me know in the comment section down below what you want to see in the future for content-wise. What do you guys think, again, on my question earlier of do you think the players should be the ones that are forced to change the meta by doing things as extreme as playing only hate decks, like Scion Draven hate decks only, so the ladder's extremely polarizing? Or do you think it should be more on the developers to maybe put out more balance patches or do something else so that way the players don't have to take the extreme of completely bullying out a deck by completely like warping the meta, making it extremely polarizing? Again, my personal opinion, I think players taking the taking the like first action to forcing Draven Sion out is good. I think players need to be doing that a lot more. I think if players have to rely on devs to fix the game anytime there's a good deck instead of consistently coming up with counter options or anything like that, then maybe the players are just getting a little bit lazy there. But who knows? I mean, I'm also one of those lazy players, so we'll see. So I appreciate it. Exclamation mark, or not exclamation mark Discord, this isn't Twitch, but join my Discord. The link will be in the description below so you get notifications whenever I post anything or go live on Twitch. Go follow me on Twitch because I stream on there 5 days a week. I do a lot of ladder climbing and lately a lot of PvE. So I've had a lot of fun streaming on there. And sub here on YouTube so you get notification whenever I post on YouTube. That's it. I'll see you guys in the next video.